It's difficult to say at this juncture because a lot of these cryptocurrencies, they are just like different schemes because very early stage is really just idea. So I don't know whether the idea is going to work. So
really, is it just an idea? I mean, there are a lot of offerings on the internet, for example. People are saying on the Facebook, say, buy these ICOs, and you're going to be returned enormously, handsomely in the future. But not a lot of things come into reality.
But the future applications really not known at this stage.
What about in the United States, the ICOs, how they've been working so far? Should regulations catch up? Professor Wolf.
Yes, so clearly we have a problem here in terms of the phasing between the development of the blockchain, sort of the distributed ledger technology, which is really what's exciting here, and the cryptocurrency. So there's sort of two pieces. One are these attempts to produce your own currency, which really gains value by controlling the number of units through cybersecurity and other technologies or crypto technology. That's a lot less interesting. That's more speculative. That's really likely to create a lot of losses eventually. Not in all cases, but in some. Now there's a more exciting thing, which is basically distributed ledger, and that's the way payments are made. That's far more exciting. That we think does have a future. But in the United States, as in China, there's a scam-rich environment. Regulation needs to catch up. There's some great stuff going on, but there's also a fair amount of shady things going on that are just being done to avoid regulation.
That's true. A lot of things are developing under the shadow zone, as they say. But here is the thing. Should regulations be developed at the same time while allowing these things to continue? Or we should ban this first and then see how regulations be drawn up to create a more mature market? What is your take?
Again, it's a difficult question, but again, I suspect it has to be case by case. Because if you ban this, then it will go to other countries. So I think in some of the Baltic countries...
Because on the internet, there's no...
Yeah, exactly. So you don't know who is the buyer. Yes.
That's right. But on the other hand, Mr. Xu, here's the thing. You think about the other financial regulations in China. Many of those China could learn from the lessons and experience of the other countries. But the blockchain and ICOs is not, because China is developing so fast and even so advanced when it comes to these kind of new economies. So actually, not many references China have in hand when it comes to, compared to earlier times. So Mr. Xu, is that a smart choice now? Let's just spend it and think about what solutions to have, and what could be the solution?
I think as the gentleman in New York was saying right now, I think everyone is quite excited about blockchain. I believe regulators are actually taking quite a receptive approach towards blockchain. But of course, this ICO is very new. It's less than 6 months old. Clearly, a lot of speculation. But I also want to say, I don't think mom and pop are investing in that ICO.
So who are investing in those ICOs?
I would say people who are investing in ICO, probably people who have invested in Bitcoin and blockchain. They are not people like us.
So far, Professor Wolf, $1.8 billion since the year 2014. That's the amount of money that has been used to buy ICOs. Of course, these ICOs are initials. You don't see them, right?
Yeah.
You cannot use them literally.
Yeah, but just like internet in the early 90s, you didn't know that would be like today.
You don't know. And blockchain, everybody agreed that is going to be the future. So is it about whether you could catch up with the future? Is it about how you are going to shape the future right now? Professor Wolf.
Yeah, part of it. I do think the Chinese authorities have done something kind of smart, if abrupt. That's it's more of a moratorium. If they were more aggressive here, they would have stripped the coin. So they didn't take the currency. All they said is, hey, we know this is a scam-rich environment. We know some of the offerings here are just get-rich-quick schemes. We know there are people buying these things who don't know what they're doing. So let's give a moratorium of 6 months or 3 months. Let's figure out what's going on. And ultimately, that's better for the space. It's better for cryptocurrencies as well. Because if they're not legitimate, if they're not regulated, then they're just going to be boom bust and they'll have a sort of bipolar cycle. So, I do think we need to know that. I think the future requires us to have a regulatory framework because you can't function as a currency or a means of payment without this crucial thing, people have to have faith that you work, you're honest, and you're tamper-proof.
Yeah.
And that actually requires regulation, whether people like it or not, right? It's required.
That's true. That's true. But, when you think about the regulations, okay, give them some time to draw it up. But at this point, when it's being banned, what alternatives can China offer to coin offerings? The popularity of coin offerings surged in China since the year 2017. Actually, this year, 65 ICOs raised $395 billion. Oh my God, that is huge. And of course, all of these, whether they are real ones or not, it is not clear. But Mr. Xu, when you think about this gigantic number, and when you think about there could be competitions in the world in the future about who's going to have the finest regulation and who's going to have the most refined market for it, and who's going to be the most attractive place for ICO offering, will China be the one? Mr. Xu.
Oh yeah, China could be one because, as we know, Chinese consumers are extremely tech savvy, and e-commerce in China is far more developed. And according to, just to quote our Prime Minister, and he said once, if we regulate Tencent, we won't have WeChat today.
Okay, what does that mean?
I think we should be cautious. A temporary ban might be okay, but then I think in the interim time, I think we may also have to have market development.
Very interesting. Professor Wolf, are there some models being developed? Discussions crucial for drawing up with sound regulations on the ICOs.
Yes, but I would echo your earlier point. So that is happening, but we need to borrow from the experience of other asset classes and other forms of trading. So we don't have a history here with cryptocurrencies to look to in any country. So there's not a history in China, although China is a bit of a leader and a leader in use and investment in the space. There really isn't enough history, so we have to look at other assets. And actually, if you look at stocks or bonds or certificates or most other financial products like cryptocurrencies, they're the object of wild speculation. There's massive scams. The public loses confidence. There's a collapse in the prices. And then out of the rubble, the 10 or 5 or 6 or 12% of really good opportunities mixed in there emerge and solidify. We get a regulatory framework that builds confidence.
Is trying to make the internet the largest stock market in the world. But how will that happen? It is not very clear. One of the crucial questions I want to ask both of you, both from China and the United States, is are our regulators these days equipped with these kind of knowledge and information to do their job? Because economies and particular technologies are happening so fast, and people are taking advantage of these technologies almost overnight. Professor Wolf first.
So I think we've had a little bit, I think we're totally capable of doing it, but we've had a bad period for the regulatory environment here for a while. And that's only because as people have become hostile to regulation, they've defunded the government agencies that we need to regulate. And so then the government agencies don't have the personnel or the budgets to do the regulation. And that makes people all the more sure that the government can't do it. So I do think we need to sort of properly fund and empower our government regulators. But it's very clear to me that in any place as developed or sophisticated regulatorily as China or the United States, the capability to properly regulate these things, even though it'll take some efforts and some misadventures, absolutely there is the capability to do this right.
Mr. Xu, are we equipped with the capabilities?
Not in the short term. I think this is true for both emerging markets such as China and the most developed market in the United States. That is why we need to have a balance between regulation and self-regulation.
But the self-regulation you're talking about, Mr. Xu, exactly what you're referring to?
Well, maybe you can have developed certain mechanism, sort of just like in the fixed income market, you could have a rating, you could have so-called qualified investors. This is really not for mom and pop. I think this is really for more informed players.
Definitely more informed players, but at this point, you do see different kinds of regulations being drawn up about the internet, about the e-commerce, and of course there's the latest ban on the ICOs. But the question is, how sophisticated can we become? Can we become as fast as possible to deal with these issues? Mr. Xi, very briefly.
Very briefly, I think it has to be case by case because this thing is different from regular common stocks and fixed income instrument. If you ban, then they go to other countries. What do you do?
Professor, do you agree with that?
To some extent, but I think the burden of making sure the public, the investing public, is well informed has to be shared by the folks in this market profiting from blockchain, profiting from the ICOs and government regulators, and that means some coordination of the private businesses and some taxation of this process to support a regulatory framework that allows the public to have confidence in the space. Ultimately, the ICOs will stop. They will not be viable if the public loses confidence. So everyone has a stake in making sure this works and making sure it proceeds at a manageable pace, even if that's a bit slower than what we've seen.